The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. And that's not all. We also do daily news on our LinkedIn and our Instagram that you should be following at Breaking and Entering Media on Instagram. And then the link to the LinkedIn will be in the description. Keep following us along for new content all the time. But this week on the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast, you're about to learn from one of the coolest guests that we've had on. The guest is John JP Petty III. So we call him JP on this show, but he is a seasoned advertising professional and entrepreneur. He is the founder and executive creative director of 14th and Market, a creative agency he co-founded with his wife, very recent. He currently leads 14th and Market, which is an agency that blends cultural authenticity with strategic execution. So he started his career in advertising after initially pursuing a path in music industry, working at translation before joining Wieden and Kennedy. Deep entrepreneurial spirit is the theme here. He built Bodega, which was within Wieden and Kennedy, and is now launching his own shop. 14th and Market is all about being inspired by an intersection where he grew up in Philadelphia, which symbolizes the fusion of culture and commerce. The agency is committed to telling authentic stories and shaping culture through its impactful creative work. So you're going to learn, if you listen to this whole thing, which you should, you'll learn that JP once started a record label as a teenager with his father helping him set it up, foreshadowing his future in entrepreneurship and creative leadership. JP's the man. You're going to love this show. Follow them along. Follow 14th and Market as well as Breaking and Entering Media, as we're both going to grow and take over the advertising landscape. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right. John J.P. Petty III. How are you doing today, sir? Welcome to the show.
Gino, what's popping, man? How are you? Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor to be here. Very, very proud of what you've built. You and your partners have built.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. Things are good here in New York. Where are you calling in from today, sir?
I'm still calling in from Portland, Oregon.
Yep.
Maybe the weirdest place on the planet, but it's cool. Probably not as cold as NYC. Doesn't move as fast as NYC, but I'll be here for at least another few weeks. I'm headed back to Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. It's a lot of winning happening in Philadelphia right now, so the home base is calling me back.
Yeah, hopefully more to come. Mm-hmm. More wins to come in the future here.
You already know.
That's awesome. And you're going back for good or for?
Yeah, man. Well,
what's the situation?
I mean, who knows for good, but definitely for now, for next March 1st. I came out to Portland was never on my roadmap. I think spent some time at Wieden. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But after spending about half my time with Wieden, I got that promotion to run the office as an executive creative director and move out to Portland. If you want to succeed at Wieden, you'll probably have to do a little bit of a stint at our international headquarters here in the Pearl District. So,
yeah,
interesting era in my life for sure.
Yeah, you're going through a big transition here. Yeah. And when I saw the news, I remember hitting you up right away. I'm sure you got hit up like crazy when you announced your new agency, which you are calling what, JP?
Yes.
Bring it to the people.
Yeah, hell yeah. We got a new group, new brand. It's called 14th and Market. I'm really excited about it, man. I founded it with my wife, and 14th and Market is named after a real intersection in Philadelphia. I'm from Southwest Philly. My wife is from North Philly, but the name is also symbolic. We like to say it's where the block meets the boardroom, an intersection. We bring the grit of the block and the glamour of the boardroom. We provide like a raw culture and marry it with like a refined strategy and execution. Those two things should be able to coexist. They elevate each other. That's how we like to think about the group symbolically, holistically. It's what we see in our people. It's what we see. It's what we try to bring to our projects. It's how we work through our process. It's just we love the name for that reason. We love what we represent for those reasons. You know.
All right. Well, that's going to be something we're going to unpack this episode. I'm pumped for that. And I'm just closing out some of my tabs here. I got so many tabs. It's like craziness. So I'm getting a little bit of.
Gotta clean that up, man. Those are always distracting. You got to get that out of the way.
I know, man. I know. So 14th and Market. You grew up on that street. It's a real intersection in Philly.
Yeah.
Real quick, what's it like growing up in Philly? Give me the rundown there.
Man. Well, the crazy part is, first of all, I grew up in the southwest section of Philly, and specifically 55th Street. You know, they're going to be really proud when they hear that. But growing up in Philly is crazy because, you know, first of all, it's the oldest city in America, so there's a lot of legacy, a lot of history there. And it's all around you. I mean, we're a Quaker state. Like you still can't even just like walk into a store and buy like a bottle of liquor. Even today in 2025, it's not a thing. But there's a vicious duality to the city too. You know, like I remember I went to a magnet high school, George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science, which sits on like basically on Temple University's campus. And growing up in Southwest Philly, had to travel across the city to get there. So I'm waking up as like a 13, 14-year-old at like 6 a.m. to get over to the other side of the city. And just commuting through the city in that way, it's like so in your face, that duality. Like on one side, it's like a beautiful city full of like creative riches and troves. On the other side, it's tough, man. It's like gritty. You know, if you like not everybody makes it out of Philly that grew up grew up where I grew up or come from the types of places, you know, I come from, my wife comes from. We don't, a lot of our friends and our colleagues in the past, you know, see the light of day. And so I don't take any of that for granted, but it's an interesting relationship. I mean, that's not dissimilar from NYC or Chicago or Atlanta or LA. Like most metropolitan cities in America have that duality thing going on, but Philly is definitely, because it's a massive city. It feels like a town. It's like right in your face. That's what it's like to grow up there.
Got it. So a young JP goes on, breaks into advertising, ends up working at Wieden and Kennedy for 6+ years. Arguably one of the best shops of all time. Rising the ranks there, leading your own like shop within Wieden, which we'll get into. You come on to the success in advertising. At what point did you realize that you had an entrepreneurial spirit, a creative spirit? What were you doing at a young age that lit that spark or brought you to advertising?
Always. I would say like very early on. And this is where I get to like shout out my mom and my dad. Probably my mom was an educator. My dad was also an entrepreneur. He is an entrepreneur still. I think there was like a little bit of like rigor on my mom's side. She didn't play around when it came to the grades. And so like I was always like an honor roll student, but my dad was like he was also like pretty smart, I will say, but experimental in nature though. He would try a bunch of things. Like, you know, he would he launched his own like accounting firm and would get after it, and he was killing. I remember him killing a bunch of like new ventures. But creatively though, I just felt the need to kind of lean in. Well, first of all, I've always been surrounded by like super creative people. Like all of my friends, they were either like graphic artists, recording artists, you know, designers, etc. Like, and I was that as well. But I mean, I never rapped or laid a verse or anything. But I think the wherewithal that was in my household, I would take out into those group chats, if you will. Like I would help my friends execute their ideas a ton. You know, I remember in 2000 and maybe that was like 5 or 6, going to my dad and being like, Dad, I want to start a record label. Can you help me start a record label? He helped me fill out all of the paperwork and, you know, probably gave me a little bit of money to play around with. Nothing too crazy. But I remember like pulling everybody together and going to the studio and just like having fun, like seeing those ideas get out of our heads into the real world. It was really cool, and that's been true. In middle school, I would like draw these little sketches of like cartoon characters and sell them to my classmates for like $1 or something or whatever. They would love them, you know. And then I remember getting to high school, we used to have to wear uniforms at ENS, and Fridays were like dress down Fridays. I would do like I had like a in Southwest we had like the screen printing machine at one of my like old heads crib. I would take like t-shirt requests to make custom t-shirts for people. My Thursday nights were used to be sick. My Wednesday nights used to be crazy because everybody was getting ready for the fresh Friday fits. I mean, so it's kind of like how I grew up. I kind of grew up that way, and now it's so crazy to even talk about it or think about it like this. I don't even know if like the team knows all of this stuff about me, but it's crazy to see it like actualized in the form of 14th and Market because kind of doing the same thing. I mean, conceptually, it's the same thing. Um, just doing really dope shit, dope creative shit with my friends is what I get super excited about. Doing work for the culture is what I get super excited about. And I've probably been doing that since I was like a young pup running around Abbott Elementary.
Isn't that crazy? Like there's these indicators you can only realize when you like really look back and connect the dots. Like, oh, that does make
That's
sense now that I
right.
got into advertising.
Right, right. You really don't talk about that stuff too much. The time in the day doesn't really allow it. You usually working, your brain cells are dedicated to something else. It's like a therapy session we're having now, Gino. It's like this is
Yeah,
talk to
man.
my therapist. You realize
Yeah,
everything's connected, you know?
yeah. Isn't that cool? And then, I mean, and then you can even think about like a young JP seeing you now, like back then, how proud he would
Oh
be. So that's
man.
awesome, man.
I think, the 13 I think about this all of the time. The 13-year-old version of myself. I try to remind myself of this when things aren't going exactly the way I might have planned or envisioned. Like if I told the 13-year-old version of myself what we're doing today, he'd be like, "No fucking way! I can't believe this shit. Are you serious? Yo, you might be the coolest person on the planet." I think he would be very impressed and proud. He probably wouldn't listen to any of my advice, but he would be very impressed. You know?
I know that's awesome, man. And I think that's a good reminder for all of our listeners who are, trying to get in this industry. They're trying to break in,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stress that comes with that. But you have to realize you will get in, and you will make yourself proud. And then you've probably already come a long way.
yeah,
If you're listening to this show, they're probably ad nerds in some way, shape, or form, or in your connections. So I'm sure everybody's made a lot of progress. Just gotta remind yourself of that, and you'll get through.
yeah. Absolutely. I think that I love that you said that because it reminds me. Like I'm going back to Philly. We've taken a few trips back. I've been able to spend some time with my family and some family members who haven't seen me in a while. And just like any other professional space, we spend so much time in the trenches, right? Like we are living by our calendars day to day. We don't ever really carve out time to take a step back and like really evaluate the progress that we've made. And the reason I bring up my family is because they'll always remind you of the last time they saw you, it could
Hmm.
either be good or bad. They'll be like, "Oh, yo, your hair got so long," or "Oh, you've gained weight," or "You've lost weight," or "You got taller," or like you don't ever realize, "Oh shit, my hair is growing," or "Damn, I need to get in the gym," or "Damn, I need to eat something," or like you don't realize those. You don't like we live in the day to day. We don't give the aggregate enough credit. We need to start giving the aggregate more credit.
So what I want to do then is we go into your career now and how you broke
Yeah,
in. Let's just like whenever you got a moment, whenever you got an idea to give back to the next generation, when it's hot, let's talk
let
about
it
it.
rip. Okay,
So
let's do it.
we'll let it rip. So then what's your break-in story? How did you discover advertising from your entrepreneurial spirit, your creative spirit from your household, your entrepreneur dad, educator mother?
Mm.
You break into advertising at some point. Help us understand how you got into all this.
It's a really good question. I kind of just stumbled into it. So, coming out of ENS, my high school, I went to Lincoln University, which is the nation's first like degree granting historically black college. It's about an hour south of Philly, and I wasn't going to go there. I was going to head down to Florida A&M. I was really excited to go. down in Tallahassee and be a rattler. But they gave me a little bit of money, but Lincoln gave me like the whole thing. I got a full scholarship. My mom was just like, "Yo, history writes itself, bro. You're going to Lincoln."
Gotta go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was super active there. Like I was obviously like a dean's list student to maintain that lack of a bill, but also very active from an extracurricular perspective. I served on student government association. I was the king of my class. I belonged to. I pledged Epsilon chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So I am a frat guy, a noob, if you will, and then you know, while there, I was writing. Me and a friend of mine, we built like this platform called screamatme.com, which was basically like a blog of sorts. We grew up in like the blogging era, and we were just putting a bunch of thoughts down on paper and taking all of our cultural observations and formalizing them. And then once you know it started to get popular on campus, and then it started to get like popular beyond and different networks, etc. I developed like a pen, like a pen game, like a mean pen game, and I thought I was gonna be in like editorial. One of the things that happened after I started that website is I was realizing I didn't understand or know all of the rules. I didn't know how to get all of those ideas out into the world, and so I chased my master's and went and got what they were calling an industrial project management degree, master's of science degree from Drexel University in Philadelphia, to
Hmm.
teach me how to formally bring those ideas to life. And while I was there, we were maintaining the website, and then a recruiter ended up seeing some of that stuff. Not only was I like writing for my own website, but I was also hired as a freelance writer at this publication called Rain Magazine, which was a part of like the Huffington Post network. And they were seeing like a lot of my writing. A recruiter, her name was Abby Grzinski. She worked at Translation. She saw some of that
Hmm.
work uh, and was impressed by it. And they were, and ironically enough, they were building out like a social team that was led by Marcus Collins and Chaucer Barnes. Stout had this idea
Nice.
to modernize like the output of the agency. And this had to be in like 2012, 2013. So Abby called me and was like, "Hey, I saw some of your writing. Have you ever considered advertising?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. I thought I wanted to be in the music business." Uh,
Mm.
but I had followed Stout, and I was a fan of his. Like I was always a fan. I was the kid that was buying Search magazine and going like straight to the back of the magazine to see who was responsible for some of the moves my superstars were making. Stout was always on those
Mm.
pages, and so I had known about Translation as an agency. I had been familiar with Stout's work, and so it was kind of an honor to get a phone call from Abby, to have Abby take my work seriously enough to share space with Stout. And I remember still being on the fence about it because I thought I wanted to be in the music industry. In fact, the day I got the verbal offer from Translation, I was walking out of a Def Jam interview. I was going to work for Def Jam for sure. So I tried to put Abby off. Tried to
Right.
I tried to like put her at bay so that I could stall out
Yeah.
and wait for the Def Jam offer. That eventually came, but Abby's a beast though. She was like, "No, I'm not stalling. Either you want this or not." And I'm like, "I kind of need it. I kind of need it right now."
Yeah. So you had the Def Jam offer come in after you accepted at Translation.
Yeah, the plan was, because this was still an experiment. Translation was contracting like young social savvy creatives, and I was
Hmm.
being hired. I was being contracted there to write for Bud Light. I don't know if you remember these brands, but it was obviously Bud Light. You know and remember, but Bud Light had these extension lines like Bud Light Platinum, which had more alcohol in it, and
Bud Platts.
yeah,
Yeah.
Platty, make it platinum. We were making everything platinum. And
Yeah.
then they had like Rita's, which were a crazy product. It was like strawberry, limerita, Orange.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was writing. I
Yeah.
was like the voice of Bud Light and their extensions, and then also we had State Farm for a little while. I was the voice of Cliff Paul, just writing a ton, and but it was contract work, and so
Yeah.
you know, I
That's a break-in.
it,
Would you count that as your break-in?
yeah, definitely, but
Yeah.
I still my heart was still waiting for the Def Jam call, so I took the translation gig waiting for Def Jam to call back, knowing like when they call back, I'm out of here.
You're out. For sure.
Now,
That's legal
here,
for the most part.
here, right.
I mean, it's just
It's
business.
just business,
Like you could do
and then
that.
also too, like it was they had us on like a month to month thing at first because they weren't sure if it was going to work. They weren't sure if we were going to work. They were betting
Yeah.
on these kids to kind of come in and help breathe some life into their business. Man, I got the translation. And I remember walking in. I remember walking in the translation first interview. Um, well, yeah, the interview before I even got the offer. I'm in a suit in Times Square, walking into this advertising agency. I don't know any different, any better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look like a fucking idiot with this suit on, and I'm sitting down on the 12th floor. It's a loft upstairs. I can smell weed basically coming down the stairs. I the music is blasting. This woman, she looks cool as hell. She's on her phone, walks to the reception desk, and she has on this leather biker jacket. She was a project manager. Her name is Jennifer Turner. And I just remember thinking, like, holy shit, the thing that I thought Def Jam was, translation actually is. Like, this is probably where I belong. I don't know anything about this industry. I still kind of want to be at Def Jam, but this is cool as hell. I remember being bit then and being like, yo, I could probably make a home here. By the time I started my day one, my day three maybe, I was like, yo, this is definitely the place for me. And so
And you were hooked.
I was hooked. I was hooked because it was so much energy, so much creative energy, so many vibes. It just felt like home. It felt like where I felt comfortable. It was like the block in the boardroom had converged a little bit. It was like the idea of 14th to Market, like in the beginning. That was the start of my career, and that shit was so crazy. I just remember hustling, crazy. I remember meeting Stout and just being like enamored. And I remember meeting some of the smartest people in the industry there. Like, and I remember being so hooked that I was coming in before everybody and leaving after everybody. I was like a sponge. I was putting up so many shots, learning so much. Things moved really quickly for me because I got hooked and I was very passionate about it. Still rings true.
Yeah, man. So that initial role was a contract writer of some sort,
social
correct?
copywriter, contract social copywriter for Bud Light Platinum. That was the Bud Light Platinum and extensions. That was like the first role I had in advertising. It's crazy.
Nice, nice. And then thoughts of the like Def Jam record label, those subside. Did you ever want to go back? What I see you did a stint at United Masters.
Yeah. Well, Def Jam actually did call back, and they were like, we think you're really cool. We decided to move in another direction for the role you interviewed for, but we want to have you interview with some other group or something like that. And I'm like, I actually kind of like where I'm at, which was crazy. By the time they called back, I had fallen in love with translation. And so, I did still maintain like a lot of the relationships over there at Def Jam and still homies to this day. But I would say like, I just that music industry bug had subsided a little bit. I felt like I was still getting a little bit of the music industry. I still had like proximity to the music industry. I'm working at Translation, which is a agency that was founded by Steve Stout, a former music exec. All of our
Right. If there's any agency to work for to kind of cure that quench, right?
That's right.
Quench that thirst, it's going to be Translation with Steve Stout, and it's part of the what is it? Is it part of United Masters Group?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's right. Like exactly. So it was music all around us. But like Platinum, we had a deal with Justin Timberlake, and I was writing tweets for him at one point. And We had Budweiser Made in America, the festival that's in Philly. I worked that, so I was really
Full
close to
circle
music.
there.
It was super full circle. But one day, Stout called me and a partner of mine, Joel Rodriguez, to his office, and it was like, yo, I'm getting back into the music industry. And our brains exploded. We're like, what in the world do you mean? Like, what does this mean? Like, for the agency, what does it mean for us? And he's like, no, I'm launching this group called United Masters, and I want you guys to be a part of it. And so we were really excited about that because obviously Stout is a visionary, and if he has an idea, we're going to run through the wall for that idea. But also, this was an opportunity to get back into the music industry,
Mm-hmm.
and especially with the idea that he had, it was about helping artists get their ideas out of their head into the world without having to put handcuffs on, which most major label systems would have you sign like ridiculous deals that you would never see the light of day.
Interesting.
And so we were doing like translation and United Masters. We were packing like basically 15 jobs into one day. I remember Joel and I would sit on like the 11th floor in our building. It would just be me and him in the dark, writing decks for translation, and then also writing decks, taking calls for United Masters, just jamming, just trying to knock out plans that we thought were exciting and fun and cool to help introduce United Masters to the world. It was pretty crazy. So I did help launch United Masters. I do still consider it something that I contributed to. It's not my baby. It's definitely Stout's baby, but I definitely feel like I was a caretaker of United Masters as it was being accepted.
You helped raise that baby. Yeah. That's cool.
I definitely
That's cool.
I definitely changed the
at
United Masters.
That's awesome. So recap here. Let's do a quick recap, and then we got to get into Wieden, and then we'll get into how you launched your shop. You started out writing in college, the blog.
Yeah.
And you were writing what? Cultural analysis, stuff on your mind, whatever you felt. It was a blog.
Yeah, it was like a news blog. We would brain dump on it. I think like early days of Complex, a vibe like that. It was like that.
And was that getting a lot of following, or is it you just doing it for fun? Was it consistency, just an outlet? Was there a business goal with this, or just get it out there?
No, it was just to get it out there. We were having a lot of fun, but then it turned into like a legitimate thing, like a business. Like, because we had amassed an audience, we would have like labels and like artists reach out to us to be featured on the platform. And we would always just be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then it got crazy. I remember getting a phone call once for the website, and they would be like, "Oh, we got an artist album's coming out. We'll pay you to." I was like, "Holy shit! Wait, hold on. This is different," And
it's like what I'm doing.
Yeah, it just stumbles into like a business. But we didn't stop.
Did you ever want to blow it up? Did you ever want to go all in on that?
A part of me did, but I also knew that it was like not. It was like like a means to an end. It wasn't going to be my whole thing. I had other ventures. I had other focuses. Like I told you, I started that record label. I thought it was, I wanted to go all in on that, which is why I wanted to work at a place like Def Jam to learn and bring it back to the crib. But it was just something that we did for fun, basically.
And that's the best way to start anything.
Yeah.
If it's gonna make money or grow and be a full-time venture, like when I started Breaking Entering, it was just to help out my peers.
Yeah.
Just to pass the time in the pandemic, and now it's my full-time job.
That's right. And now it does. I'm sure there are tough times, but it probably doesn't feel much like a job.
Oh no, it's the best.
Right?
It's the best. I work every day. I work 7 days a week. Like so many hours, but it never feels like that. I love it.
I know. I'm starting to, fall in love with that right now,
Oh yeah. Well then, so if you were to start over, let's say in 2025, JP is just graduating college, you want to break into advertising this go around. What would you do to directly get into an agency, break in? Would you pick a specific role? Would you build a portfolio? Would you network like crazy?
Yeah.
Who would you call up, knowing who you know now?
Oh,
like give us some secrets.
Knowing what I know now, I would break in kind of similarly, like I did in 2013. I guess it was.
Yeah.
I would be well versed in the tools that are valuable today. Like and back in 2013, I knew social media like the back of my hand. Like I was well versed with the many versions of Facebook by then. I had already, like, I was the guy that used to come, that had friends come to his dorm or whatever to help them code like MySpace pages, custom MySpace pages and shit like that. Like, I knew how to like manipulate Vine and upload videos. Today, if I were getting into the industry, like, I would just be super well versed in what everybody's paying attention to, but doesn't quite understand. Uh, like,
So maybe like TikTok? Like, would
well,
you like
I
no
would
out
say
like the social
maybe less
platforms, you would
social
say?
platform, maybe more like tools. Like, I would just be like a hell of an artificial intelligence architect right now. Like, I
Mm,
would I would I might not have all of the skill set, but I would know how to build systems to cover, like, to save a bunch of time, to
yeah.
be way more efficient. I think that's what I would probably get into right now, because there are so many tools out there that are doing the jobs of like 16 people, and I don't mean to scare
Yeah.
anybody. We still need those people, but the the person who knows how to like architect those systems is going to bring a
Mhm.
lot of value to whatever companies, organizations who just don't quite understand it yet.
So, like, that prompt engineering is so
Yeah,
important,
stuff like
and,
that. Right, exactly.
yeah, I love that stuff. I pay for the ChatGPT 4, it's like 20 bucks a month. I think everybody should,
Yeah, I definitely
like, if
do.
they can afford it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do too. Like, I just that's basically, and when I'm using it, it's kind of like me being in the gym. Uh, like, I just try to dedicate some time to like making my prompts a little bit sharper, smarter,
Mhm.
and just being familiar with the space, because it's coming whether we want to embrace it or not, and I don't want to get left in the dust. We got to stay young.
It's scary. I'm not afraid to say that it is kinda scary to me.
Yeah,
Like, the copywriting abilities are getting a little bit better every day, it seems like.
yeah.
So you better know how to use it.
Absolutely, you got to. I mean, it'll like I said, it'll never replace us. We've got, like, we have culture, we have human background, we have, like,
Not maybe not you, JP, but some of these,
yeah,
like
that's real.
but there's some agencies and some people out there that might be able to if they're not trying hard.
That's
Like,
true.
some
That's
people
true.
you're a star,
I
so
don't think I'm a star. I'm surrounded by stars for sure, but I think, like, I would say the machines can only go as far as the people take them, and so as much time as you're spending architecting prompts and learning those tools, yes, those tools are getting better. But the thing that you can do that those tools can't is go outside and soak it all up, connect dots. Like,
Mhm.
you're watching
Yep.
Netflix, or you're watching, like, or you're listening to like the latest album or whatever. The tool doesn't know to bring that from the outside inside to the boardroom, inside to
Oh,
the
yeah.
conference room. So you can still bring that. Like, the tool isn't going to the next exhibit, or, like, the tool isn't touching grass, I guess is my point. Human beings
You're
to
right.
do that. You got to
Right.
bring that to the tools.
Right. Like, in a classic example, right? Like, an AI ChatGPT software won't know if LeBron breaks the all-time scoring record.
Exactly.
Right. And then you see it in real life, then you can pair it with a brand, you can pair it with an activation or a quick social post with Nike, let's say. Like, you can move quickly. It might help you generate your idea like with the graphics, but it's the human that's got to connect. Okay, this is a big moment.
Exactly.
How can we tie a brand to
That's
this?
exactly right. Like, that's exactly right. Like, we're living in a sensitive time right now. There was a nasty accident yesterday. Plane,
Mhm.
super nasty accident. Plane crashes into like a military helicopter. 67 people died.
Awful.
Awful, terrible, terrible accident. That cultural context we all have in our minds. Human beings have in their minds. So we
Yeah.
know there are jokes that are just taboo. You shouldn't make right now. There are topics that you shouldn't touch. There are super sensitive things that either lean into or stay away from. Maybe check on your friends and family members or whatever. Machines don't know how to do that. They'll never know
Right.
how to do that. So
Right. They might generate a joke that's way too
Tone.
insensitive.
Yeah,
And it's not, yeah, it's just, and if you don't have that awareness, you might go and play that, or you might post that thing that
yeah,
Gen AI makes, and you could be screwed.
exactly. And that's just, yeah, exactly. That's just one example, one of many
Yeah.
examples we can
Yeah.
use to like emphasize the importance of humanity marrying machine.
Love it. Let's get to
Yeah,
now
let's go.
Wieden. Your chapter there.
Yeah.
So you spent how long there? 6 years?
Yep. So after about 5.5 years at Translation United Masters, I got a phone call from another recruiter. Her name is Kelly Peterson. Um,
I love that you're name dropping.
yeah, man, because
Love it.
that honestly and truly, this is like I'm just a product of all of these people's collective efforts,
Yeah.
yo. Like, if not for Abby, I never see advertising. If not for Kelly, I don't touch Wieden and Kennedy. You know, like
Hmm.
they're some of my favorite people, on the planet. And I
You'll never forget them ever.
ever like, and
Like,
I owe the world to them. I owe the universe, the one that I've been a part of and then helped building. They have equity and all of that stuff for sure.
mhm.
Uh,
So she calls you
yeah,
up.
she calls me up. I remember she called me up. She called me up twice. The first time she called me up, I still wasn't totally hip to Wieden and Kennedy. I was living in a translation bubble and I was just trying to do cool shit. So when she called me and invited me to come to the Soho office, the first interview at Wieden and Kennedy, New York, I wasn't really digging like that. I wasn't like, I think the woman that I met with or the team that I met with, well, we weren't like it wasn't the same. It didn't feel like where I was coming from. It didn't. I didn't feel like totally comfortable, and so I probably
Sure.
bombed some of that. But also, I wasn't very interested in that era. Uh, and I think about a year later, she hit me back up, and I was like, "Oh, this is Kelly again." And she's like, "This time, I'm here to talk to you about a different role. It's a head of department role." I had grown up a little bit. I had like a few other cases under my belt. And so when I went, I was like, oh, this is a first of all, it's a different Wieden. Second of all, it's a different role.
So you said the different Wieden is this Portland,
No, no,
not the New
I
York,
just mean
or is it
like,
just a new leadership or
yeah,
something?
it was a different vibe. It was the same building, same office, Wieden and Kennedy, New York, and
But different leadership or different role? What was the change there?
uh,
Different client, different responsibilities?
yeah, different responsibilities. And then
Yeah.
and then the role that we were talking about, it was different context. I will say, I think if my memory serves me correctly, I was I was interviewing for the role that I interviewed with in that first time around, you know, and so the things that were off putting to me, or the things that I wasn't connecting with, this conversation felt like an opportunity to maybe like put a little bit of my sauce or rectify like some of those things, like
Hmm.
it felt like a more influential conversation I was having with Kelly the second time around. Like they wanted me
Mhm.
to have my fingerprint on the future of Wieden and Kennedy, not just a project that they wanted to hire me for the first time.
So what were they saying? What was the pitch? What did they want you to do?
Well, when I came in, I was like, I'm more familiar with Wieden and Kennedy now. You guys are um, an anthem making machine. Like that's what you do. You make like broadcast films that people laugh and cry about. You're a fireworks company. I play a different game. I'm coming from the social space, and I'm a more while you all make spectacular work, I make more participatory work. Like my
Mhm.
work is more democratized. I want people to fuck with my work. You guys want people to like look up and herald your work. And the pitch from the office was that's exactly what we're trying to change. Like we want your way of thinking in here. You know, we want you to get in here and help us basically modernize, diversify our creative output. And that's like huge to hear from Wieden and Kennedy, man. Like because this is like the Yankees, they're treating you like Jeter or Judge or Soto. It's like, damn, they really they recruited me, and now they're telling me that they want me to be a part of the team to help influence the culture, it was super humbling. And when I think about it, it's still an honor. But that was what was most exciting, I'll say.
Gotcha. And you couldn't say no to that.
Really hard to say no to that. Like, at that juncture in my career, there were a lot of implications. I had equity in United Masters. I had a team at Translation that was, looking up to me for my leadership. And I was in like group chats with Stout discussing like the business and future trajectory of what we were building. And so
Yeah.
it took a lot to walk away from. I could have done Translation for another 30 years. But Wieden and Kennedy felt like I could have like a greater impact at Wieden and Kennedy on the industry. I told them that I had a vision for social that was greater than Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it felt like if advertising was the NBA, Wieden and Kennedy was the LeBron James of it. If LeBron says we're doing a thing, then the whole league is going to do a thing. And so if I can get into this system and help, the world kind of think about social differently, I knew I was going to be able to do that at Wieden and Kennedy. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that at Translation.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
So you took on that role. What were some of those high achievement points, big memories working there over the past 6 years? And then we'll get into the impetus of your agency.
Yeah, I think, it was great people. Definitely a different vibe. I remember feeling like very uncomfortable. It takes people like a year to get comfortable at Wieden and Kennedy, if I'm being totally honest. Like, the culture is so strong, and people are always really nice. Like, Wieden is really nice, and the crazy part is there's not a lot of ego at Wieden. Like, when there maybe should be more. Because they are responsible for like a lot of hits. They're responsible for yes, there are like creative insecurities. Like, people are definitely. All creatives are insecure to some degree, but I would say at Wieden, it was wild to have people who were legends in the industry asking me for my advice. Like following a lead of mine or my team, and so that was like that was probably a sign that it felt really good that I could call that place home, because nobody was kind of sitting on their high horse, at least not to your face anyway. They weren't like, they weren't kind of throwing their weight around the way they could have. And then
it's good to know.
Yeah. And then the pandemic hit and things in the world changed. I remember living in Brooklyn in my apartment, like literally, trying to navigate the days on this screen, on this Zoom screen, like trying to be creative in isolation is really tough. But somehow some of our greatest hits came out of there. We won McDonald's right before the pandemic hit, probably September 2019. And then we just hit a stride. We started building Bodega late 2019, and then 2020, it really was on a rocket ship because the whole industry was trying to figure out new ways of working. We had the answer in Bodega really early. And that is probably what I'm most proud of. And then, after a string of hits, we had some hits on Ford, hits on McDonald's, hits on Bud Light. In the New York office, New York management team, Neil Arthur and Carl Lieberman, they got promoted to global management, and it was largely due to the success of the New York office. The has shifted, like the energy has shifted. I think for a really long time, you're in advertising, that the conversation for a really long time was Wieden and Kennedy Portland is Wieden and Kennedy,
Yeah.
But I think
that shifted.
Yeah, the New York office, man, we were on some shit in that era. We were like, I remember we won Ford, and that was like, whoa, this is crazy. We were already like firing off on Bud Light. Everybody was screaming dilly dilly, and then we won McDonald's, and then we started like getting like some home runs up on McDonald's, and I think, the industry started feeling a lot of pressure. Our other offices started feeling a lot of pressure to perform, which is why Neil and Carl probably got that call. And their number one remit was to spread some of the sauce that they had in the New York office out to the network. One of the first decisions they made, I think I was a beneficiary of. They promoted me to executive creative director, and I was going to move out to Portland. Oh man,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And then
Yeah.
and then the objective was to help modernize that office, like basically have the same effect or impact on the Portland
Yeah.
office as I did on the New York office.
I gotta ask then, how did the Portland office react to that? Because they are so, Nike, they've been doing their thing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you coming over there and trying to change things up. How'd they react to that? Did they take to that well?
Fuck no. Absolutely not. Yo, come on, Gino. Listen, let me tell you something. I love the Portland office like my next breath, and they know that. But it was hard, yo. It was really hard, yo.
Yeah, it's gotta
So
be.
first of all, let me just if you haven't noticed, I'm black. And Portland is just very white. Like it's just a very white
Hmm.
city. And so like there's like a cultural thing there. Like there's a little bit of a cultural disconnect there. And I'm coming from Brooklyn. Like I'm from Philadelphia.
Hmm.
Coming from Brooklyn. I'm coming from the New York office, Kid
Yeah.
kid with all it. So the black kid from the East Coast with all of the receipts from McDonald's and the focus on social is walking into an office in the Pearl District in Portland. KFC largely helped build the reputation of this office. And we're not very good at social, but you can't tell us shit about anything. Like,
Mm.
that's what
So how do you go into that? Like, what's your mindset? Like, tread lightly or, stir it up right away?
my
What's your strategy?
you know, I walked into that role at 33. I'm 37 now.
Yeah.
My mindset at 37 is tread lightly. My mindset at 33 was, oh no, we about to turn this up. Like we gotta turn
Oh,
this around. And the reason that's true is because that office absolutely needs to do well for the success of the entire network.
yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's
it's
headquarters.
the headquaters, and we're in a really interesting time. Like, Dan and Dave are very old, and they're in the
Yeah.
twilight
Yeah.
of their not just their professional lives, but their personal lives as well. Like, we knew Dan wasn't doing too well. We knew Dave wasn't
Yeah.
doing too well, and so we were staring at the next era of Wieden and Kennedy. So
Yeah.
I'm looking, I'm looking at the clock like, damn, we don't have time to mess around. We gotta go.
That makes sense. I mean, that urgency.
It was legitimate urgency because the other thing about Wieden and Kennedy is we take a lot of pride in our independence, but it's on
Hmm.
us at the end of the day. Like the cavalry is not coming. We have to figure this out, like,
Right.
and so I came in really, really, really hot. If I could have a conversation with my 33-year-old self, I would say, listen, this is a really exciting time for you. And patience is not one of your strong suits, but you're going to have to learn to have like extreme patience and be more strategic and maybe more political than you've ever been, you know?
Yeah.
And I wish I
Yeah.
had Chat GPT 4.0 to rewrite some of my text messages and emails and speeches back then, because I definitely came in
Yeah.
hot, but I felt like the office kind of needed it a little bit at that point in time. To be fair,
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's good advice. I think anytime anybody gets into the next level, a leadership esque role, maybe if it's from a senior creative to an ACD,
yeah,
like they can learn a lot from that too.
absolutely. And the thing is, you learn. I had learned this a little. I had learned this at a different scale, but you're no longer evaluated on the work that you do. Like you're evaluated. You're at that level evaluated on like the conditions that you create, like the
Hmm.
people you can help like elevate. That's how you're evaluated. Like nobody's going to give you points for getting your hands dirty. I mean, yes, leaders should get in there when it's necessary or absolutely appropriate, but most importantly, you have to maintain the conditions. You have to make sure they're right.
Right. Well, we have a few minutes left
For
here,
sure.
JP. So I want to get into now then what was in the mood then? What sparked the idea to start your own shop? What were you thinking? What happened? And then run us through the execution.
Well, 14 in market. I mean, we we had started. My wife and I had started that. We had formalized it back in on March 17th, 2018. Is probably what some paperwork says somewhere. We
Mm,
we we were not operating it like a creative shop. It was more like a creative consultancy for like independent personalities, like authors, DJs, photographers. We were kind of like managing talent. We still do, but we we were like helping them like navigate conversations that they were having with like brand partners. If they wanted to do a pop-up shop, we would help them produce that stuff. Like there was just a lot of game that we're sitting in our heads that we could pass on to like these younger artists, younger creatives that we were wanting to pass on. That's what we built it for. And then, graphic designers. We helped launch a clothing line in Philadelphia. We helped in a few New York artists kind of get their stuff off the ground. Anyway, that's how 14th and Market came to be. I would say it eventually, what happens is the phone calls just get heavier and heavier, bigger and bigger.
mm,
And as I was building Bodega for Wieden and Kennedy, especially, maybe 1 year into being in Portland, um, the job became like less and less fun. Like the thing that we talked about earlier, when you're waking up 7 days a week and it doesn't feel like work because you're just having fun and passionate. That was true very early on at Wieden and Kennedy. Um, Especially in the early conception of Bodega, I was like dedicating 1,000 hours a week to the thing. I wasn't sleeping. I could not say
mhm.
I was dedicated, locked in. And then the job just became more and more political. It just got really um it was less about the work. The conversations I was having
Mhm.
ended up being like less about the work, more about like again creating conditions, and it just became tough. I gotta say, like, and while I'm still very proud of the work that Bodega was doing, because the working teams were like shielded from a lot of those conversations, and they still putting out hits. We had absolute hit makers. I think like and the press super excited about Bodega. Talent that never viewed Wieden and Kennedy as a home, super excited about Bodega. Clients super excited about Bodega. I think just building that thing inside of Wieden and Kennedy was just like a really difficult thing to do.
Right. So you learned. So that was a good creative challenge, but then you're also thinking about like, well, I built this. Maybe I can build
Exactly.
14th
That's
up a
exactly
little
right,
bit
Gino.
further as well.
That's right. It's like, oh, you see, like, oh, damn. Like, obviously, I had a lot of help. I mean, Wieden and Kennedy is a machine,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they bring with them a lot of credibility, unmatched credibility. But I was looking around like, yo, like they didn't have Bodega did not exist before I got to Wieden and Kennedy, and now we built something that is like a legitimate business. You know, if I
Mhm.
dedicate the three brain cells I have left to building something to if I dedicate that to 14th and Market, which is going to be slightly different than, but it's not the same. But if I dedicate those brain cells to building 14th and Market, man, that feels like something I want to do. It feels like something I'd be passionate about and could get excited about again, and maybe have to deal with like less bureaucracy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So what can we expect next from 14th and Market? And then what's your final advice for everybody listening if they want to get their first job in advertising, sir?
Okay, so I think you can expect a bunch from 14th and Market. We're really excited about the relationships we have. There's a lot of work that's coming, a lot of vibes, but I don't think you should expect a traditional advertising agency. We are not that. I think you'll see like a bunch of work come from us that will make you ask yourself if that's an ad or not. Like, if it's
Yeah.
that, like, we are in the storytelling business. We are in like the cultural business. So we'll be doing a lot of that. One of our very early partners is really excited to kind of have us kind of jump in and start contributing to that. We'll be contributing to, actually, I think I can say it now. Hopefully I can. It's Billionaire Boys Club. 14th and Market will be working with Billionaire Boys Club. We're an agency
Nice.
of record for them, and it's gonna be lit. Oh, thank you, bro. It's gonna be lit. Um, so that's what I'm excited about. And then there's more to come. I should probably leave the nugget there, but I'm excited about that. And then the advice that I have for the next generation of advertisers, the first thing I want to say is get on, put on, man. Like, I live by that mantra. It's not enough for you to just win. You have to like open doors for others. Success is never about individual achievement. It's always about making sure like the next person or the next party eats too. The career that you build should be more a bridge than it is a ladder. So once you make it into the room, you got to make sure somebody else does too. That's really important to me. The next thing I'll say is culture moves really fast, and strategy should follow that. You can't really fake culture. Either you understand it or you don't. I know it's an overused, probably weaponized terminology. 14th and Market has a way of describing that or defining culture, but the best creative work always starts with like something really real. Something that people, community you're trying to serve, they live by. It's not like data points in the deck. You got to get outside. And knowing culture isn't enough. You have to know how to shape it, how to package it, execute it in a way that creates impact at a scale. And then
Love it.
My last bit will probably be bet on yourself. But if you do that, you got to be ready to back it up. Confidence is great, but without preparation, confidence is just arrogance. People who succeed aren't necessarily like the most talented people in the room. They're always the ones that outwork the competition, study the game, make smart moves, the undeniable talents. So you make it so that even if people don't like you, they can't really deny your impact. I'm not saying go out there and be a douchebag, but stay locked in and make sure you collect your receipts so that you can then bet on yourself. I think there's like a misconception you bet on yourself, but you're not ready, really. You got to be ready to back up all of that confidence you have.
JP, wonderful episode. How can people reach out to you if they have any questions?
Oh man, I'm around. My Instagram is jpettii. 14th and Market is always around, easy to find. And then Leah Tavares, who's like my right hand right now. She's an extension of me. I brought her over to Wieden. She's now coming over to 14th and Market. She's amazing. Like, she's gonna help us. But I love everything about Leah except her Boston fandom. That's annoying. But as a Philadelphia fan, I hate the fact that she likes the Patriots and the Celtics, etc. But she's a wonderful person, and she manages my life. Basically, she owns my calendar. I don't even know what I have after this. So if you want to get in touch with me, she's the plug, but I'm always around. Hit me up. Follow me on all platforms. I respond to those DMs. I will.
Well, JP, thank you for coming on, sharing your story, your advice. All the best with 14th and Market. I know you're going to crush it, though. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Gino, thank you for having us, man. Appreciate you.
Of course.